Okay, so for this portion of the podcast, we're going to be interviewing the lovely Ella Griffin. So if you want to introduce yourself, Ella, and what you do with Cal Dining.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ella Griffith, and I'm a third year here at Cal, and I've been working for the what was formerly known as the Cal Dining Sustainability Team. Now it's the Housing and Dining Sustainability Team since my freshman year. So I've really gotten a good look at seeing sort of the evolution of sustainability on campus. And my particular role is food waste reduction coordinator. So I am really integrated and involved with where the food goes after we decide we don't want to eat it. And composting is a big part of that.
Okay, let's start off with the first question. Do you think Cal is an environmentally friendly campus?
I think a lot of students here take initiative to make it an environmentally friendly campus. It's a hard question to ask because on the one hand, there's the physical structure of the campus, right? And we are very much ingrained in... I think the campus is very much reliant on fossil fuels, and the way that our energy system is set up, a lot of energy goes to waste. It's why we see those warm steam vents all over campus. In general, a lot of the buildings are older and don't necessarily have the most updated advanced technology, energy-saving technology. But that being said, there is a lot of really cool, like for example, the new Haas building is an entirely zero-waste building, True Hall. And there are a lot of students, so the physical structure, and then there's the culture on campus. And I think depending on the group of students you're talking to, it can be very, very environmentally friendly. People are really aware and understand the impact that they can have. And at the same time, I also see a lot of apathy. I see a lot of people who understand theoretically that single-use plastics are a huge problem, and yet don't hesitate to continue to use a straw for a drink. And waste sorting, which is, very much ingrained with compost. I don't know, it goes both ways. So we actually have one of the lowest waste diversion rates out of all the UCs, around 48%, whereas schools such as UCLA, Santa Barbara, Irvine are closer between 70 and 80%. And what that means is that we're not doing a really good job of sorting out our waste, and so more is going to the landfill than necessary.
Okay, that kind of relates to my next question. Compared to other universities, do you think Cal is behind, at the same pace, or ahead of the pack in terms of specifically food waste reduction?
Food waste reduction, I'd say that we are leading the charge on a lot of different things. And the reason for that is because not only in the dining halls, everything that's uneaten at the end of the night gets packaged up and throughout the day and donated, but I see a lot of momentum and people working on the intersectionalities of food waste. So food waste doesn't exist within a vacuum, right? It exists in the context of the energy and water that went into making the food. It exists in the context of basic needs and food distribution and who has access to food and who doesn't. And right now there's a really big effort on campus to create a kitchen that will be a hub for food waste to come in and serve food insecure students. And I haven't heard about a lot of projects of that caliber at other universities. And I know, that being said, while leadership-wise, I think we're incredibly ahead and innovative, I think as a whole, Cal students actually are a little more apathetic and waste more food than other schools. So there's this event that we do in the dining halls called Weigh Your Waste, where students scrape off the edible food into a big bin that fills up throughout the night, and we weigh it throughout the night. And other universities do something similar, Davis, San Diego, Irvine, and I'm trying to remember exactly, but I remember seeing the numbers from one of the schools, and they just had such significant less food waste per student in the dining halls, and that was really surprising to me, and it begs the question, why is that? What is the background of our students that's different? Because it's a habitual thing, right? You grow up not necessarily having to think about it, then you come here and you are introduced into a buffet-style dining hall, and you eat, and you take more than you can eat, and you throw it away, and you don't think about it. And I think Cal students actually as a whole, maybe this is a big generalization, but tend to do that more than other places. But then again, those you don't really know. That all being said, no matter how far ahead we get, there's always room for improvement.
That's interesting what you said about the dining halls, because I live in the residential floor of Martinez Commons, so I do have a meal plan. So I do see everyone just like scraping off their plates into it, and I see sometimes the plates are like loaded, and I'm like, why did you get that?
It's ridiculous, you know. And it's what I like about Weigh Your Waste is it's not necessarily explicitly a shame event. The purpose is not to embarrass, we're there to weigh, not to judge. But students will approach us and they like look at their plate and they're like, oh my God, now that I'm accountable, now that there are eyes on me for how much I'm wasting, like I'm embarrassed by this, you know. And it just goes to show that we understand the problem. We just don't necessarily think that, or like make a conscious decision to contribute to the solution.
Do you know about like how much food waste is produced by the dining halls each year?
Yeah, so we obviously it's so Weigh Your Waste is our biggest indicator for that, and we've been doing that since the spring of 2016, every semester, a couple times a semester. And the data that we've collected shows on average, for example, Crossroads wastes about between 200 and 250 pounds of food a night, and Foothill around between 40 to 70. Cafe 3, now with the addition of Blackwell, that data is kind of varying, but it was around 100 pounds. And then Clark Kerr actually wastes the least, and it's around 30 to 50 pounds. And so based on those estimates, we can kind of guess how much food is wasted per year in pounds. I mean, doing the math, if one night, 350 pounds of food are wasted, then multiply that by 180 days, and you get a very big number. But more so than that, we partnered with a grad student and ran a cost analysis. And so what we found out is that there's students throw away in dollar amount around $250,000 to $300,000 worth of food a year.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
I wonder if you like advertise that number, will people become more conscious of like, yeah, I mean, you're like paying for your meal plan, but you're also throwing it away.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I think so. But something that's actually interesting, talking about the messaging of food waste and how to like get people to be aware about it. Something that I've found that I think is really not a part of the conversation around food waste is the relationship people have to food in the first place. So something that we're really careful about is that all of our messaging isn't aggressive, because you never know when you could trigger a student who has body dysmorphia or, doesn't eat their food on their plate because they have really, really negative relationship with that food. And, talking to dietitians at Tang and talking about it on our team, I think that one of the biggest solutions, of course, is to tell people how much is being wasted, but also to redirect the conversation to, do you sit down and eat a meal? What does that mean to you? Like, the culture of drinking Soylent when you're in Moffat for 24 hours and just having 3 Soylents as your meal is just one example of the culture of how we don't have a good relationship with our food. And if we slow down and think about that, how is that going to contribute to food waste reduction?
I think it's quite admirable that you're like thinking about body dysmorphia, like all of the aspects, not just like you're wasting so much food. Stop wasting so much food.
Right. I mean, it's a sensitive topic. It is. Yeah, definitely.
And then like in an environment where like people are food insecure, but at the same time our dining halls are wasting so much, you wonder.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing, is that we want people to be aware, not in a shameful way, but make that connection. Understand that you approach us at the dish return with a full plate of food that you're going to throw away, and tomorrow in lecture, you have a 1 in 6 chance of sitting next to someone who doesn't know where their next meal is going to come from. And that's pretty, incredible, and not a lot of people know that or make that connection.
Definitely. Okay. The big question. Could you briefly go over the process in which Cal's food wasting from the dining hall is composted?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be completely honest. I deal more in-house, so I don't necessarily know like the details of when it gets taken or doesn't, but I will summarize this to the best of my ability. So say a meal is made, and then all of the leftover food that hasn't been touched or served to students is packaged up and donated to Copia, and Copia is like Uber for food waste, and they transport it to various communities in need around the Bay Area, including our very own student food pantry. And then all the scraps and leftovers are then taken to a giant loading dock in the back. And I'd say in the dining halls, so, a lot of people are skeptical about what is compost and what isn't. In the dining halls especially, everything that we're putting out is compostable, so people don't have any choice but to put it in the compost. And, besides like a stray tea bag package or something, it's not contaminated. So it does then go get transported to, loading container in the back, that fills up, and I think about once a week that gets driven or picked up by the city of Berkeley and taken to the composting facility in, I believe it's in Richmond, and where it's, broken down even further, turned back into mulch, and sold to various people who need dirt. Yeah. Collection is pretty standard. So behind the counter, there are green bins that fill up, and those get taken back by janitors, and then, the students have the green bins by the dish return, and those are changed periodically, and also janitors will take it back. And I think transportation is all done with vehicles. Yes. Yes. That being said, the food waste on campus is an entirely different story and the compost on campus, because there's a lot more opportunity for contamination, and a lot of the time you get a load of compost that has just a bunch of plastic in it. And in that case, I've heard that sometimes janitors will just throw it into the landfill bin. There's a certain caliber that they're trained to kind of look for. I think it's around 40%. If they see around 40% or they see a lot of trash in there, then unfortunately that load will not be composted.
Would you say that's kind of like the same process for residential halls?
Yeah, I think so. There's far less composting in residential halls. Every student is given a compost bin at the beginning of the year, but I know a lot of people don't use them because of sanitation issues. And the ones on the bottom floor, the big compost bins, are taken, I think, around once a week. And yeah, if they're contaminated, there's not much that janitors can do because it's not their job to sort through it for us.
And then I just want to kind of know your opinion about how you feel about people and organizing their waste, because I've seen some people kind of just give up and just throw it all into the trash in the landfill.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I understand, it's a new habit to learn, and with so many other pressing issues that you're thinking about going throughout your day, throwing something away is not going to be something you're going to dwell on very much. But it's really, it kind of makes my blood boil sometimes, because it's like, it's not that hard to just take an extra second to think about what you're putting where. It can be hard and confusing because, for example, the campus has different waste sorting requirements than residents in Berkeley. And that's really interesting. So, for example, only PLA 1 and 2 are recycled on campus. But if you just live, you walk one block to Channing or Durant, and you live in a house there, PLA 1 through 6 is accepted. So that can be pretty confusing. And that can be really confusing for students. And so, that's understandable, the nuances. But in general, people don't even take the time to, remember that their banana peel does not go in the recycling. And so, yeah, I think it's just that I don't mind embarrassing people over or making them feel ashamed, because it's like, really, you don't have anything to lose here, and there's everything to be gained by sorting your waste correctly. So yeah, pisses me off, but I also understand that these are habits that have to be learned. There's a level of knowledge there. And so it's our job as environmental stewards to understand how we can best communicate that urgency and the importance of sorting your waste correctly.
I really like what you said about like there's nothing to lose but everything to gain.
Yeah.
That's so true for composting.
Yeah, it's so true, especially with composting. Preaching to the choir.
And then could you talk about Cal Zero Waste 2020 and the presence of food waste in that discussion?
Absolutely. So, I mean, pardon my French, but that's a bullshit goal. And the reason for that is because that was set by the university, the Office of the President. That's the goal for all campuses, UC-wide. And yet, if they were really serious about that goal of zero waste, and so, you know, we can talk a little bit more about what zero waste looks like. Zero waste means that all waste is sorted properly. It doesn't mean that no landfill trash is produced. It means that you have around a 95% waste diversion rate, which means 95% of stuff that can be recycled, like anything that can be recycled or composted is recycled or composted. So when I gave that number earlier of Cal's waste diversion rate is 48%, that's what that means is when you take a trash bag out of the trash, 48% of it should be going to the landfill. The other 52% could be going to the recycling or compost. And so that zero waste goal, food waste is really absent in that discussion. So food waste isn't necessarily a big part of the zero waste by 2020 goal. However, it is a part of the discussion in the sense that what gets thrown away that is organic matter that gets put into the landfill takes away from that zero waste. And so I think, I don't necessarily think it's necessary to make food waste a part of the zero waste by 2020 goal, but it's important to understand that those two movements are both incredibly important in their own right. And that, you know, people taking the time to produce less organic waste is a good thing because that's less waste that can get missorted. So in that way, food waste is really connected. But yeah, I think they're more of their own entities, they're more of their own movements, and the relationship between them is there. But it's important to just have people working in either way.
And then moving forward, do you think, are there plans to improve Cal's composting? Do you think this process is effective? Is there anything that you would want to personally change?
Yeah, I think that the education around it is really important. There's a lot of misinformation. And so that is something that can really use improvement and understanding the urgency of it. I think also understanding the differences. Composting is easy because it's just organic material, right? But for example, in the zero waste goal, that also includes recycling and landfill, and there are different requirements for you know, recycling on campus versus recycling in just the city of Berkeley in general. And that's incredibly confusing for students. So I think that's could be a big thing, is to unify, make more uniform and standardize the process so that you only have to learn one thing and you have to learn it once, and that's that. Let's see, how else can the system be improved? Well, you know, part of the reason why other campuses have such a high waste diversion rate is because they do this thing. They bring the trash to the recycling center or composting center, and then they actually pay people to sort through it. It's called a MRF, a dirty MRF, if you sort it out, and I'm blanking on what that acronym stands for, but I can get back to you on that. And yeah, and so, you know, people are physically sorting through the trash, making it so that waste diversion rate is 100%. Because they physically sort out everything that can be recycled, everything that can be composted. And, you know, there's a lot of controversy around that. Is that the best way? Because ultimately everything gets sorted then, but then people can continue to be apathetic and, you know, throw it away in whatever way they want. So I don't know. I don't know if that's an improvement or not, but I think it's an important piece of the discussion, an important debate to have. Yeah.
Okay, and then why doesn't Cal have a composting facility, and do you think that's a part of like the future plan?
I mean, first of all, where would it go, right? Cal is a pretty compacted campus, and I'm not sure there's room for that. But I do know that some schools, they actually turn their food waste into energy. For example, Davis does that. They have a co-generator thing. And that is some really, really cool technology. And so the potential for that is there. But in terms of a full-scale operation compost facility, I don't think that should be on campus. Because I think it would decrease the quality. There's a lot of smells that come from that. It would decrease the quality of student life more so. At the same time, having it be more in your face might motivate people to care a little more or sort their waste better. So I don't know.
I feel like maybe that co-generator, like changing waste into energy, might be like right up in the alley of like Berkeley's engineering community to really hop on that.
I totally agree. That's the kind of innovation that Cal is really good at.
And I know you touched upon this a little bit earlier, but since our project is kind of more based on like an educational, informational aspect, how do you think people should learn about food waste?
There is no one should right way, and that's what's most important for those of us that do have the knowledge and the understanding and awareness about this. It's our job to provide as many methods and opportunities for education as possible. So that comes in the form of, tabling in dining halls, directly being active with speaking to students and reminding them. It comes in the form of having consistent uniform signage everywhere. It comes in the form of informing people or having a presentation during Golden Bear orientation, or, people talking about it casually with their peers. But what I think the should in learning is you should understand the intersectionality of food waste, waste sorting, basic needs, energy and water, environmental racism, all these different things. I think that is incredibly important to this discussion. And so that aspect of education is a should. But again, there is no should in how you learn about that.
And then last question, is there anything that you want to add or any advice for people on how to limit their own food waste?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you go, for those that eat in the dining halls, understand that you are empowered to ask for smaller portions. Know that you can go back to for seconds. Maybe try something before you take a full plate of it so that you can know if you like it. That's one of the biggest things we hear, that people don't enjoy the food. Gently remind your peers or set the example for finishing everything on your plate. That's really important. Bring to-go boxes to restaurants, so even if they don't have one, you can take your leftovers to go. And then for those that prepare their own food, look at what you have before you go and buy more. See if you could be creative with your meals. And I think this goes back to the relationship that people have, the poor relationship that people have to food in the first place is, once you start thinking about food waste and you're more intentional about what you're eating and how you're eating it, that education, it kills two birds with one stone. If you help people have a better relationship with food, chances are they're going to waste less of it. Because it's not just going to be a means to an end of refueling yourself on the go. And I think that's really important. And so just evaluating how you eat when you eat, what mood you're in when you're eating. That's a really good way to begin to decrease food waste, because chances are you'll finish everything entirely.
All right. Anything else you want to add? I know you covered a lot.
Nope, that's about it for me.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you.
No, I really appreciate it. This was fun.